In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the town of West Hobart, Tasmania, became the center of a chilling legend that captivated locals and sent shivers down their spines. The story revolved around a seemingly ordinary house nestled in the quiet streets of the suburb, a house that was soon to be known as the Haunted House of West Hobart. According to the legend, this house was so haunted that it drove its residents to the brink of insanity. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises at night, seeing ghostly apparitions, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread whenever they passed by. As the rumors spread, the house became an object of fear, avoided by locals who didn't want to tempt fate by going near it. The situation escalated when the family living in the house began showing signs of severe mental distress. Their behavior grew increasingly erratic, and soon whispers spread that the house's paranormal activity was to blame. But the truth was far more sinister and far more grounded in reality. When authorities finally investigated, they discovered that the source of the family's madness wasn't supernatural at all. Above the house, a datura vine, a plant known for its powerful hallucinogenic properties, had been growing. The plant's toxic leaves had been falling into the family's rainwater tank for months, slowly poisoning them and causing their terrifying descent into delirium. Datura, also known as the Devil's Trumpet, has a long history of use in rituals for its mind-altering effects. But in this case, its unintended consumption led to a tragic and disturbing outcome. This haunting tale from West Hobart serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the real horrors aren't ghosts or ghouls, but the very real dangers lurking in the everyday world. The story of Cropsey began in the 1970s on Staten Island, New York, and quickly evolved into a chilling urban legend that haunted the local community. According to the legend, Cropsey was a former employee at the Willowbrook State School, a notorious institution for children with disabilities. After losing his own child, Cropsey was said to have turned to kidnapping and murdering other children as a way to cope with his grief. At first, the tale seemed like nothing more than a frightening story meant to keep children from wandering too far from home. However, the line between fiction and reality began to blur when children actually started disappearing in Staten Island. Cropsey, as the legend described, was a disfigured man with a hook for a hand who prowled the streets, preying on the innocent. The terrifying story reached its peak when 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger, a girl with Down syndrome, vanished without a trace. Her body was later found buried on the grounds of the old Willowbrook School, leading to widespread fear and speculation. The investigation eventually pointed to Andre Rand, a former employee of Willowbrook, as the prime suspect. Rand had a criminal history and was linked to several other disappearances in the area. Despite limited evidence, he was convicted of Schweiger's murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Even after his imprisonment, the legend of Cropsey continued to haunt Staten Island. The story of a man who preyed on children, blending fact and fiction, became a lasting reminder of the dark and disturbing events that transpired in the community. The story of the Maine Hermit revolves around Christopher Thomas Knight, a man who became a living legend in the quiet woods of Maine. Known as the North Pond Hermit, Knight lived in complete isolation for 27 years, surviving solely by stealing from nearby cabins in the North Pond area. From the 1980s through the early 2000s, Knight carried out over 1,000 burglaries, taking everything from food and books to propane tanks and toiletries. Despite the widespread reports of these mysterious thefts, the perpetrator remained an enigma for decades. Knight's story became more than just a tale of theft. It turned into a local legend. Cabin owners in the region began to share stories around campfires about the elusive North Pond Hermit, a figure who could survive the harsh Maine winters in an unheated tent with only the supplies he pilfered. Despite their efforts, no one could catch him until April 2013, when he was finally apprehended by a determined law enforcement officer. When Knight was arrested, the public was astounded by his story. He had lived in the woods since 1986, completely cut off from society. Knight didn't light fires, moved only at night, and went to great lengths to avoid detection. His only contact with another human during his time in the wild was a brief encounter with a hiker, during which he simply said, "Hi." After his arrest, Knight expressed shame over his actions and offered little explanation for why he chose to live as a hermit. His story captivated the public, not just for its mystery, but for the extreme lengths he went to preserve his solitude. Following his sentence of 7 months in prison, Knight returned to a quiet life in rural Maine, his legend still alive in the memories of those who lived in the North Pond area. The story of Purple Aki is one of the most bizarre and unsettling urban legends to emerge from the UK, yet it's grounded in the disturbing real-life actions of a man named Akinwale Arobike. Known widely by the nickname Purple Aki, this towering figure became infamous across the northwest of England during the 1980s and 1990s for his unsettling obsession with young, muscular men. The legend of Purple Aki began as whispers among teenagers who claimed that a large, imposing man would approach them, asking if he could feel their muscles. Aki's requests often went further, with him allegedly asking the young men to perform squats so he could feel their quad muscles as they exercised. The encounters, though seemingly harmless at first, became more and more disturbing as stories of Aki's persistence and invasive behavior spread. Things took a darker turn in 1986 when 16-year-old Gary Kelly, a young man who had previously encountered Aki, tragically died after falling onto a live rail while trying to escape from him. Although Aki was never directly charged with Kelly's death, he was convicted of manslaughter and harassment in connection with the incident. Over the following years, Aki was in and out of prison, repeatedly arrested for harassing and intimidating young men, often by continuing his strange compulsion to touch and measure their muscles. Despite multiple incarcerations, Aki remained a fixture in the urban legends of the region. His story was fueled by a combination of fact and fiction, with exaggerated tales of his actions spreading through schools and communities. At one point, rumors even circulated that Aki had died during the COVID-19 pandemic, but these were dispelled when sightings of him resurfaced in 2023, confirming that the man behind the legend was still very much alive. The tale of Purple Aki blurs the line between urban myth and reality, highlighting how real-life figures can become the subjects of local folklore, their actions exaggerated and passed down through generations. The story of Le Loyon is one of Switzerland's most mysterious and unsettling urban legends, originating from the Fribourg forest near the town of Mols in the early 2000s. The figure at the center of this legend is described as a tall, human-like entity, always seen wearing a vintage gas mask, a boiler suit, and a cloak. Over the years, dozens of people reported encounters with this eerie figure, often describing a sense of unease and fear during these encounters, even though Le Loyon never harmed anyone. The story of Le Loyon is one of Switzerland's most mysterious and unsettling urban legends, originating from the Fribourg forest near the town of Mols in the early 2000s. The figure at the center of this legend is described as a tall, human-like entity always seen wearing a vintage gas mask, a boiler suit, and a cloak. Over the years, dozens of people reported encounters with this eerie figure, often describing a sense of unease and fear during these encounters, even though Le Loyon never harmed anyone. As the legend grew, so did the theories about who or what Le Loyon could be. Some believed it to be the ghost of a deranged soldier, while others speculated it might be an alien or a reclusive individual with a severe facial disfigurement, hence the need for the gas mask. The figure's true identity, however, remained shrouded in mystery. Later in 2013, the legend took an even darker turn when Le Loyon's clothing was found abandoned in the forest, along with a wooden board that bore a cryptic message titled "The Death Certificate and Will of the Ghost of Mols." In the note, Le Loyon lamented that the unwanted media attention had turned him into a freak show, forcing him to abandon his solitary walks, which he referred to as happiness therapy. This discovery led many to believe that Le Loyon had taken his own life, although this has never been confirmed. As of 2024, the true identity of Le Loyon remains unknown, and the figure continues to be a source of fascination and fear. The story of Le Loyon serves as a modern-day ghost story, a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking in the shadows of our world. The story of the Bunnyman is one of the most famous and eerie urban legends from the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Northern Virginia area, originating in the early 1970s. The legend tells of a man dressed in a bunny costume who terrorized local neighborhoods, particularly near the Colchester Overpass in Fairfax County, Virginia, which has since been dubbed Bunnyman Bridge. According to the tale, the Bunnyman would appear in secluded locations, wielding a hatchet and threatening anyone who came too close. The most notorious story involves a couple who, in 1970, were parked near the Colchester Overpass when a man in a bunny suit suddenly appeared, shouting at them for trespassing, and then hurling a hatchet through their car window. Although the couple fled in terror, they later reported the incident to the police, describing the bizarre encounter. The man's identity was never confirmed, and the story quickly spread, with locals adding their own terrifying twists. As the legend grew, stories of the Bunnyman expanded to include more sinister details. One version of the tale claimed that the Bunnyman was an escaped mental patient who had been institutionalized for murdering his family on Easter Sunday, only to escape and hide in the woods, where he continued his killing spree. Another version told of the Bunnyman hanging rabbits, or even humans, from the bridge on Halloween night. Despite the exaggerated elements, the legend is loosely based on a real incident. The original report of the hatchet-wielding man did indeed make local news, but no one was ever caught or identified, and the story took on a life of its own, blending fact with fiction. Over the years, the Bunnyman legend has become deeply embedded in local folklore, spawning horror movies, books, and even a yearly Halloween event at the Bunnyman Bridge. Today, the Colchester Overpass remains a popular destination for thrill seekers and ghost hunters alike, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the infamous Bunnyman and experience the eerie atmosphere that surrounds this strange and enduring urban legend.